All right. Welcome to another episode of Exit Liquidity. Today we have Oak from Olas. Oak, man, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. How are you guys doing?
I believe good, great, man. I believe you are the first AI project we're having on Exit Liquidity after 60 some episodes, 50 some episodes. So we're pretty deep, and it's good to get someone who really knows his shit to kind of help us cross that gap. So thanks for that. First of all, excited for this one. Can you hear us okay? It looks like we're getting some connection troubles here.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, just want to make sure because the video is a little choppy. Cool. We usually like to start out by getting to know you a little bit. Basically, like, your background. What were you doing prior to starting Olas? What's your like non-crypto and crypto background?
Yeah. So my name is Oak, like the tree. I am actually a geneticist by training, like academic background in genetics. Yeah, I actually got really quite frustrated with doing genetics just because of how sort of like limited and constrained it felt. So I moved almost immediately into Web2 product roles. Did my own startup, but basically was in kind of Web2 product for about a decade. Then 2017, I met Vitalik. And yeah, basically I went big on ETH just before like massive run up in 2017. So I really was like pretty massively incentivized to learn what the hell this thing was. And so yeah, I got like very heavily into like DeFi, early projects like synthetics and Thorchain, stuff like that. That led me to like actually contributing in those communities early on. So it's, for example, Thorchain, also becoming like a community contributor of Panther and Ceramic. And yeah, at a certain point, it sort of like put me in a position to like really choose the most like ambitious and impactful thing which I could imagine, and that kind of pointed me towards autonomous agents, which is now what I'm like fully focused on.
Awesome.
Nice.
And we usually like to kind of, the show is called Exit Liquidity, of course, and we like to ask some founders, what is your most memorable moment of you might have being Exit Liquidity that kind of tells your story in crypto?
Maybe it's liquidity. I mean, I think probably there are a lot of examples. It's really quite embarrassing, to be honest, but maybe CryptoPunks. I think I bought like the Pico top of CryptoPunks and probably sold. I don't even know what the price is now, but yeah, just in ETH terms, it's probably way better. So yeah, like humiliating L there, but yeah, and I just like fully got swept up in that pump. I mean, basically in 20, the last run, you had the May 2021 dump, which me was like, okay, it's over. Like it's over now. Like I was waiting for it. I was like reading books, like what's it called? Devil Behind Most, like pinpointing all these things which were like characteristic of the like market bull run, basically tended to perfection. But then all this crap happened with like FTX and just like getting dragged into all these plays because it kind of like shook me a bit. And CryptoPunks was like the best example. I get so much shit from some of my family members, as you can imagine.
I feel like that's yeah. I feel like that's not that I mean, at least I wouldn't consider that to be too embarrassing. I wouldn't feel too bad if my family gave me shit for that one. We've gotten some really like niche stories on here of like, you know, like ohm forks on some super random chain, or like people who like lost their like Doge wallets that had like millions in them. CryptoPunks, like, you know, it's like a pretty like, I don't know, if I had the capital for it in my first cycle, I would certainly have bet on those at the top and lost a lot the same way you did.
Yeah.
That's a cool one. Interesting. So you alluded a little bit already to kind of what brought you to OLAS, or what brought you to working on autonomous agents. I believe when we first met back in, I think it was summer of 2022, the vision for OLAS was, I don't know if the vision itself was different or the messaging around it was different. But what did it look like from day one? Like, what was the problem you were trying to solve?
So, I mean, in terms of like maybe I'll just tell the story of like kind of how at least Valerie was formed, and then, you know, what we contributed to OLAS. So I'm a co-founder of Valerie, which is one of the like core developers of the OLAS ecosystem. It's a Swiss company. And the kind of founding story of that was that both of my co-founders, both called David, worked at a company called Fetch AI. And David Minaj kind of led the creation of what is widely considered like the first kind of like open source framework for developing agents in crypto. And for various reasons, we all three of us kind of felt that like that was not the place to Fetch was not going to like bring these agents to the full capacity, like the full scale. And I can talk later on about like what I see that scale to be. But essentially, yeah, that was the basis of us kind of coming together. Like we wanted to kind of create like a protocol driven approach to developing autonomous agent economies. And so I feel like when we met, somewhat ridiculously at a hot pot DAO last year. We can go, actually that's another case of like a big L, because I ended up like buying an NFT which seemed to fund like 40 people's hot pots who just like bought tickets rather than
I didn't buy the NFT, so I appreciate
yeah,
I appreciate the hot pod.
There was a lot of free riding that night, but great night. I think like our messaging at that time was like very much kind of focused on, we were trying to make it approachable. We were like about autonomous agents from like day one, or even like earlier than day one. But nobody cared. Like nobody cared about autonomous agents like two and a half, whatever years ago. So increasingly we just like talked more and more about like what we're actually interested in, and what is at the core of the design from the beginning. So yeah, that's kind of the story there.
Nice. Yeah. That's interesting how like this stuff is like the talk of the town now, or at least it has been for quite a while. At least it's captured like crazy mindshare in crypto like no other. And to hear that you guys have been working on it for so long and like been aware of this for so long is definitely like an encouraging thing to hear. Can you explain really quick, just for our viewers, what is an autonomous agent? Why do we need them? What do they do?
Yeah. So what is an autonomous agent? It is actually very important to define it. I mean, I think one useful way to define it is kind of like say what it isn't. So I think a lot of people, when they think of autonomous agents, like they're either thinking of like a model. So it's just like ChatGPT, for example. That's not an agent. That's a model that we can kind of talk to. There's also an idea that an agent is like an assistant who kind of like will from time to time ping you and you can chat with it. But really, an autonomous agent is like the meme which I think is the best is like, do you guys know His Dark Materials?
No.
Well, anyway, so it's like a fantasy, like a sci-fi thing, and there's this girl. Actually, everybody in this world like has like a demon. Like it's like a maybe there's something in Harry Potter as well, but it's like an animal which is like their like is like sort of like helps them on an ongoing basis. It's just like always there. It's like always looking out for them. It's a bit like a guardian angel, but it will just like do stuff kind of proactively on behalf of the kid. And that's much more what a autonomous agent, at least like a personal autonomous agent, can look like. It's like it's something which is like always on, always like proactively looking out for you. In crypto in particular, we think they'll be very useful for just like autonomously making money on your behalf. And yeah, hopefully that gives an idea. It's not like a one-off like thing that you chat with. It's like it's something which lives with you and like helps you all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a really good explanation. Making money for users through these is probably a good grabber of consumers. So could you explain the current like autonomous stack?
The stack. Yeah. So, well, maybe I can just like zoom out a little bit before going into that and just like talk about like how we think about OLAS. I mean, I talked about like the origin story, but like what like the most useful way, in my opinion, to think about OLAS is that it's like the engine of a new autonomous agent economy. So like, what does that mean for you if you're like an individual? Or I think it means that you will have the ability to kind of own a share of this new autonomous economy, participate in it, and like benefit from it. And like one of the most concrete things that's happened there is like anybody who's used ChatGPT is kind of like, I think quite rightfully scared that it will replace them in their careers at some point, because they're just like so powerful, so sophisticated. And I think that one way that we look at it is that that is unfortunately probably the truth, and it's very important that as that does happen, that individuals have a way to kind of retain a share of it and to like keep some portion of ownership as their careers are impacted. That's one aspect. And then the second aspect is what we do for like protocols and chains and DAOs. And I think really what we focus on there is like harnessing agents to like maximize their growth and create a lot more token utility. So I think in a crypto world which has agents as like the prime actors, we move away from all this around like airdrop farming, around like valueless governance tokens, like, depending on like really slow hold DAO votes, and we actually move like a much more sort of futuristic vision of the internet.
Yeah, that vision is a lot of what we want to get into today. Quick like requests before we move forward. There was some like choppiness on your end throughout that last question. Want to make sure we can like hear you perfectly. Is there like any tabs you have open right now that are like a bit demanding or anything like that? Anything you can do to maybe help that?
Unfortunately, it's probably not my tab situation. It's probably my internet. So unfortunately not, but let me know if it gets a lot worse and I can switch over to like tethering, which sometimes helps.
Okay. It's not, it is trouble at some points, but I think we can still carry on the conversation. If there's anything you can do though, that would be helpful.
Okay. Let me switch over to my tethering. Let's see if that's better. 1 second.
Cool. Thanks, man.
No worries.
For those just joining us, we're in a bit of an ad break right now. Just ironing out some technical difficulties.
Okay. All right. So I switched to tethering. Hopefully that will be better. Let me know if it's not.
Okay.
Or if it's
cool.
worse, basically.
I think it is better, actually. Yeah, it looks like it's quite a bit better. Thanks for that.
All right.
Cool.
No
So getting back to services specifically, you alluded to a couple. You talked about how like, obviously like making money is a big thing that would grab a lot of attention. You talked to how like DAOs can make use of stuff. There's some services that are like currently being offered that you find to be interesting on the Autonolas stack?
I mean, there's one that's like particularly interesting, but maybe just to like extend on the point around, like particularly like the idea that around like DeFi use cases at first. So when we were in Denver, our head of ops, she's called Gemma, came up with this idea of like, basically we think that money should grow on trees. You grow up learning that money, of course, doesn't grow on trees, but we think it should, and we think that there is a path to it growing on trees. I think, and so the vision there really is that like you can run like a super simple app, and in the background you'll have agents who are like extremely, like they're basically elite traders who are operating on your behalf. So you just get like elite traders in your pocket. I think it's interesting because a lot of people sort of believe that, crypto like UX is such a massive bottleneck and all this sort of stuff. And recently I was on like Coinbase. I wanted to buy a meme coin. So I like, sent some coins onto Base, which was totally free, like it's completely seamless. Now it's in Rainbow. I can buy some coins, like super simple. And so I'm just thinking like where exactly is this UX problem? Like people who are like, I'm sure there are like lots and lots of things which we can talk about. People love to talk about chain abstraction, all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, I don't think it's a lot of people can come in and buy stuff in crypto now. It's like not a massive problem. I think it's actually the actual problems are twofold. One is that it's a skill problem, that people are not generally very interested or capable in the financial realm, and so what are they going to do? They're going to buy like some coin which is tied to like their favorite cartoon character or something, and it's just not going to go well. It's not going to go well. Like, people are going to lose money, and then we're going to be right back where we started. So really, I think it's a skill problem in the sense that in order to bring more people into crypto, people have to have more capability, not just like a slick UX. And yeah, this is kind of where money trees come in for us. Like the idea that you don't need to like move funds around, like have any opinion on finance at all. You can potentially just have a very simple experience whereby you put money in, and these very capable AI agents sort of move it around on your behalf in order to create value for you. And so that's really the vision. So like, sorry, Ali, you were asking about use cases, and ultimately that's like I think that's the holy grail, not just of what we're doing, but like crypto in general, because that's how we go from like whatever 50 million, I don't know how many people in crypto, but 50 million people like tippy tapping around, like really not creating that much external value at all, to something which 7 billion people could potentially use and benefit from. Like a Wall Street trader in everybody's pocket.
So I really like that idea of money on trees. Makes a lot of eyes peak in interest. So in terms of how a user would interact with the protocol to kind of like accomplish that, could you break that down for someone that maybe hasn't used Autonolas before?
So currently, like, I mean, it's very ironic because I'm talking about like how these great UXs out there. like right now, it's kind of a command line experience. Like that's the reality of it. Like if you want to run an agent that participates in one of our economies, then you have to pull that like git clone, like run some Python script. You have to make sure so it's like currently that's how it works, and it's full transparency. But like what we're moving towards a lot more is really an experience where you can download an app, throw some money in, and press go on your agent, and the best agents will spin up in the background to kind of move that around for you. And really that's we think how it should work. We actually have ideas for how it could be simpler than that, but yeah, it's a bit early to talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to like view crypto through that lens. People always talk about like, an open financial system, permissionlessness, all these different concepts, and it's like, you're here saying like, let's just make everyone rich, like, or let's just like create the system where we can just have like a sort of like UBI machine that utilizes systems that are way more efficient, way more effective than a human could ever hope to be, and let's just distribute that freely. That is not something I've heard before, actually, surprisingly enough.
Well, I think it's the I think that basically how people think about AI is that it is going to make everybody unemployed. Like it's just going to destroy the world because it's going to take all the jobs. And I do think that there's a risk to that, particularly if it emerges in a purely centralized context, and that is a part of the OLAS vision, is to avoid that. But at the same time, I think what is probably at least a lot more of an optimistic vision, if not more likely, is that people are not unemployed, but they're retired. So we have like a world of like 7 billion retirees on our hands rather than 7 billion unemployed, which I actually think is equally a massive problem, because people get a lot of value and a lot of like, through work we play a lot of like status games, and that gives a lot of people purpose. And I think the moment that we kind of like pull that plug, and we do have some sort of like a universal agent income or whatever, like people like how do you find a mate if you like everybody's equally well dressed because they have like these incredible like AI stylists and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how more the way I think about it. Leads me on to how into like gaming and like autonomous worlds, that kind of thing, are you guys?
Gaming, I would say a good bit. Autonomous worlds, like, I think we have a base level understanding of how they work, but I wouldn't say too deep.
Right. I must admit, I don't know. I just always thought that they were the same thing. It was just like a fancy like VC, like potentially exit liquidity strategy for like gaming VCs. I don't know, but regardless, I actually do like. I think that the word autonomous world is more accurate, because I think that basically, there's a very real possibility that in a situation where we have like 7 billion retirees, that something like an autonomous world where people can like feel like they're engaging, it's like a real economic environment that's like super realistic and super where you can actually build kind of like tangible like status and like play economic games basically. I think that actually potentially becomes quite a real solution to a very serious problem where people no longer have that like work to create that kind of like natural hierarchy.
Yeah, I guess we don't often talk about like the link between like gaming and some of the concepts that we're like familiar with, that we enjoy, just because for me personally, I kind of do take the view that like a lot of it is just like VC word soup to exit. But I can see how like having a platform to create, you know, somewhat productive activity to distribute these like services, these agents would make a lot of sense. I want to like switch back to Autonolas specifically for a little bit, because there is a lot to like digest there, I think. I'm curious as to how like, as far as I understand it, the stack consists of like the open autonomy framework, the protocol, and then tooling for like bootstrapping different services. What can you explain the open autonomy framework to us? Because I don't think I fully understand that bit.
Sure. So the way to think about it is that I think OLAS is evolving and becoming like capable of generating increasingly sophisticated like sorry, I'm just like trying to get my hands in the camera there. Like increasingly sophisticated like autonomous agent systems. So at Fetch, actually, I think so my co-founder created like a framework called AEA, which or led the creation of it, which could create like very compelling centralized agents, right? Like single agents, which are cool and like quite powerful, and a lot of people are actually like have started to build those kind of systems today as well. But like for many reasons, they're not actually autonomous, and it's very difficult to kind of build full economies around them. So the next step was open autonomy, really, which and one of the like really amazing features of open autonomy is that it makes it possible to run an agent in a decentralized way. So you can have which like is very beneficial because it makes it like way more robust. Like if you want to actually have like an autonomous agent which sort of like lives on to some degree in like perpetuity, that's essential, because otherwise you're like super dependent on like a single node. So that's like step two. The third thing which we've done is to create like what you might call I don't know, an industry of those agents. And the best example of that is what we built on Gnosis chain, which is like focused on prediction, like prediction markets. And yeah, I think it could be worth kind of drilling into that more heavily. I would say like the fourth thing which we've done most recently, which we announced in Denver actually, is staking, which takes, you know, a full industry of multiple different specialized, centralized or decentralized agents, and makes it possible to like multiply that so that you have like a network of industries and like a legitimate economy. So that's the progress. Like and the framework open autonomy, as you were like explicitly asking about, is critical to all of those. But really, the protocol is the probably the most critical piece underlying all of that, because it coordinates people to build those agents, to run them, to like design those economies, and yeah, I think that's the simplest way to think about it.
Yeah, when you say that these agents kind of live in this open autonomous world, are there instances or examples where they're kind of communicating with each other to kind of accomplish a set of goals or instructions? And could you talk about maybe some of the stuff that you just mentioned that happened on Gnosis chain? Because I know you guys were working a lot with kind of the DAO world and helping them use autonomous agents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's drill into the prediction agent stuff, because I think it's the best example of like the most sophisticated system that we've got so far. So the story is basically that we, David Minash met Martin Koppelman, who's the co-founder of Gnosis last year in Zuzalu. And you know, Gnosis is obviously very famous for its like original participation in the like prediction markets. And what Martin said was that one of the big bottlenecks and one of the things which has been very difficult. Sorry, am I breaking up?
No, you're good. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, cool. So yeah, one of the big kind of bottlenecks with prediction markets has been like the cost of getting humans to participate in them. Like if you create a prediction market, you have to like have humans who are motivated and like feel they're well compensated enough to go off, like research it, place bets. Like it's time consuming stuff, and like that demand, like that talent is relatively rare. So what we basically said was like, what if we bring like autonomous agents to participate in prediction markets instead? And so we kind of set about that by building like a trader agent, which like directly kind of sees new markets being created and trades in them. That was like the most simple kind of instantiation of it. But what we quickly realized was that there are actually other like parts of this system which need to be there in order to make it kind of function. Namely, people actually need to kind of deploy, like recognize potential and like deploy new markets. So for example, this whole system is like focused on current events. So that's just kind of what we're training it around. And so, these market creators will like sense like what are the interesting questions, and then like deploy prediction markets to answer those questions. Then you got the traders. And then the third one, which is like very interesting, is the researchers. So these are agents who will actually like go off and like use AI, different data sources to actually research the question themselves. And to your question, Cito, about like interaction between agents, like the way the researchers and these other agents kind of communicate is really I find it fascinating. So basically, like traders don't have any like AI capability themselves. They have strategy. They're like capable of like strategically participating in these markets, but they actually commission researchers to go off and like research the markets on themselves. So they'll make a transaction on chain, which like requests that the researcher like goes off, talks to different AI models, and then brings back delivers essentially like a probability which the trader can use. There are other like interactions which are happening. Happy to kind of dig into those, but I think it's pretty amazing to like see these like agents that have become specialized and who are now kind of interacting to create like a whole system which is like more than the sum of its parts. Anyway, like fast forward, like this system is now it's responsible for over 10% of all of the safe transactions on Gnosis chain from all time. It's like hundreds of thousands. I think last I checked, it was over 350,000, maybe 400,000 transactions from these agents. If it helps, like Vitalik mentioned it in his Crypto and AI article as well, as sort of like an interesting application of crypto and AI.
Always helps to get a Vitalik mention. I think goes a long way in this space. That's really interesting. I think like hearing this concrete example kind of brings me back to a question I had earlier when you first like mentioned the concept of this like universal agent income or like just having, even when you alluded to like how do you find like a mate or a partner if like everyone has their own like personal AI like styling agent or whatever, like how often do you think about like the game theory implications of this stuff just getting more and more advanced, getting more and more widespread? Like let's say agents were conducting like 99.99% of financial activity on chain at this point. And all of like the most effective services, all the most effective systems were fully open sourced and available to the point where anyone can go and use them. The simplest way I can think of it is like if everyone's winning, like who is is anyone winning? Like what happens in that most extreme? Yeah. Okay. What happens in that most extreme state in your mind? Well, I guess do you think about that?
I suppose like
I would ask.
Yeah, 100%. I think I suppose it's a bit ironic given that I've just talked about this like ridiculously sort of sophisticated prediction system that we've been building. For me to say that I really wouldn't like want to make predictions about that kind of setup, because there's just like so many things which we can't. It's just it's really difficult to see so far ahead. But I think what what is worth saying is that we think a lot about the like the underlying principles of the protocol, and particularly around like how humans, humanity in general, can benefit from having direct control over these sort of systems via a protocol like ours, in comparison to like the equivalent in the centralized world. So like the protocol already, and particularly with the new staking system that we just got passed by the DAO in the past 24 hours, we think provides like very fine-grained control for people, one, to just like experiment and design these systems in different ways, but also just to turn them off. At the end of the day, like I think one of the most powerful aspects, like one of the most important things in thinking about how beneficial these systems are to humanity is like whether or not we like how easy it is to turn them off. And I would sort of suggest on that front, like anybody listening, to think about like, if you don't like what OpenAI is doing, for example, what remit do you actually have to like switch off ChatGPT? Like ChatGPT gets to a point where maybe they build some agent economy on top, like some centralized agent economy, super powerful. What are you going to do? Like go and like literally burn down the building or something? Don't think that's going to happen, and I think I don't think you have great recourse through even a government either. So yeah, like I think we put an awful lot of thought into like the degree of control that humans have over these systems, and I think that's kind of uniquely enabled by blockchain protocols.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the example that you mentioned with Gnosis again. I really want to get a better understanding of how systems and those agents are spun up currently, and how you envision that process for a regular user.
Yeah. So currently there's like a Valerie sponsored staking program, which incentivizes people to run some of these agents in order to get access to OLAS. And we've got a good group of people doing that. Ultimately, this that'll be transition to this new kind of like OLAS staking system, which I said just got approved by the DAO, should be coming up in the next few months or so. But yeah, really, like your question is about like how do you actually kind of get involved, I guess, or like how do you run these things? And yeah, like it is currently more of a somewhat technical experience. Like you don't have to be like a DevOps guru to run one of these things. It's like you basically pull down some code and then run a script, and then like check in on it every now and then. But as I say, like I think ultimately, and that's what's like actually behind like how many of these agents are running today. But I think ultimately, I imagine a world where like everybody can run an agent that run these agents like kind of directly from their own PC. It's like very simple experience, and that is probably where a lot of these agents will like be like how they'll be operated, because they're like much lighter weight, for example, than like a blockchain node. So yeah, I think there's every chance that people just running them on their computers could populate big portions of this economy.
Yeah, I think that's like a pretty compelling long-term component of most like blockchain products or like crypto-based products vision is kind of being able to, have anyone come and contribute productive activity. Kind of like breaking that down a little bit more, what does or I guess like looking at the roadmap or like the state of development currently, what do you think are like the most important things or the most like exciting things that OLAS is hoping to like do this year? What are some of the most like the more important events coming up over the course of the year?
So like in various moments we've mentioned them already. So I'll just like drill back into them. One is this idea of staking. So staking takes something like the prediction economy with all these like specialized agents like working together like in this kind of self-sustaining system, and makes it possible for anybody to launch one of those, not just focused on not just focused on predictions, but focused on whatever your protocol needs. So for example, if you're I think two very like interesting use cases that I've thought about on that front and that we've been thinking about a lot internally are around like DeFi for one thing, sort of like maybe like investment DAOs, which are made up of individual agents. So you can have agents who are like gathering data from different data sources, some agents who are like actually placing bets and like refining their strategies, other agents who are potentially like making markets, like critiquing strategies, all these sort of things, and that can really be designed with this new kind of staking system that we're creating. And then governance as well. It's like there's similar sort of pipelines around that. So very very exciting stuff. And then I have alluded to it like several times that having apps that are like make it much easier for people to run agents is something which we're putting a lot of energy into, and I think will really expand the number of people who can feel like tangibly the power of the network.
Yeah, the investment DAO idea, or like I guess like some of the prediction stuff you alluded to, is like I think the easiest to like grasp the power of this stuff. I don't know if this one's still running, but one of the more interesting like OLAS based services that I saw a couple weeks ago maybe was like you have like a vault that anyone can go and deposit ETH into, and then you have a network of agents that use proceeds from that vault to bid and essentially like flip art blocks. When art blocks was like still a big thing, that would have been so sick to have. Like art blocks is I think not nearly as popular as it used to be, or not nearly like in fashion as it used to be. But that was really cool for me to see. I think it did a good job like explaining because you can apply that to anything, really, anything in DeFi, anything that has an open market for you to speculate on, for you to make decisions on, and have some level of profit in. So that one would be really, really cool to see, I think. You've alluded to this a couple times already, the OLAS staking. I wanted to dig into that a little bit more as well. Because as far as I understood, there was already a bonding mechanism for acquiring cheaper OLAS. And now now you can stake to provide your tokens to I actually don't even know what. Can you explain a little bit what exactly happens if I were to go and stake my OLAS?
Yeah, so there are like two main beneficiaries, I think, of I mean, it's beneficial very broadly, but I think it's kind of most helpful to think of staking in terms of like two main beneficiaries. One is OLAS holders, and one is like basically protocols and chains and what they can do with it. So OLAS holders, essentially, as you say, like the idea is that this could give them access to staking yield from OLAS emissions from the protocol for the first time. What that could look like is that in the same way that on Cosmos, for example, or even on, I guess it's somewhat similar to Lido, you go and you like pick an agent where you think, they're going to be like very productive, delegate your stake to them, and then you basically get a cut of whatever yield is coming off that thing. That would be the design. But really, I think for OLAS holders, the thing which is so powerful about this is just like the sheer like scale and speed with which this might lead the OLAS ecosystem to grow. As I say, like if you imagine like this prediction agent system, which is like there running, already doing like a ton of activity, you imagine like multiplying that out across different chains, across different protocols, like that's just going to lead to an enormous amount of growth very quickly. We hope. The second main beneficiary of staking is, I think, protocols themselves. So I have this meme about like Cardano and like Ripple being like super hot in the future, and the rationale there is that, you know, blockchains and like protocols in general, like great at like driving incentives. You can drive incentives, but like basically who's receiving those incentives today are like humans, and they're basically pretty shit ecosystem actors. They're like very expensive to get attention. They're like expensive to get them like continually using and like creating your like the activity in your protocol. Often not even that good. And also you can't like reliably sort of incentivize them to hold your token. Agents, on the other hand, are fantastic. They're very cheap to get their attention. Obviously, you have to build them in the first place, but our protocol helps with that. They're cheap to continue running on an ongoing basis. They're super smart. You can incentivize them to hold your token. So essentially, like the reason I think the Cardano and Ripple, I mean, it's somewhat tongue in cheek, but like, you know, if you have a massive war chest and you want to drive like activity to your protocol or chain in the future, you know, this kind of staking system, I think, is going to be extremely attractive, because you set up your incentives, you say exactly what you want them to do, they emerge, and then they're just like running forever. So yeah, it really doesn't matter what CT thinks about your chain 5-10 years from now, I don't think, because it's really going to be about your like agent incentive game that really matters. Anyway, so like staking in general, I mean, I can go into more specifics about like technically how it works if you like, but that's where we see the benefits. One, to OLAS holders in terms of like, you know, access to staking yield, hopefully, and that's dependent on a few things falling into place, but and also just like ecosystem growth, and then protocols being able to like really lightweight populate and keep activity in that ecosystems for long periods of time.
Yeah, that makes sense. There is like quite a bit on the tokenomics I would be interested to discuss, but I also want to be tactful of time here. I know we have about 12 minutes left. One of the things that I found interesting, like when reading about Autonolas, is I feel like from the language, it seemed like the token was designed a lot more intentionally than most are. Most will have like some standard vesting schedule, you know, an amalgamation of commonly thrown together concepts. Very few like actually have a goal and then design like all the mechanisms around achieving that goal. And not only did you guys do that, I think, or are you doing that, but you did a good job explaining like what each design component does. From like a high level, can you talk a little bit about like the token, like how it's constructed a little bit and how it's used to sort of like incentivize different things and support the network?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you very much for saying so. It's not actually that often that it's acknowledged, but I think it's probably the most interesting and powerful part of the network. Just how like useful the token is. Like it's, you know, woven very deeply into like many of the things which like make what we do work. I was actually saying, like, I obviously have a connection to ThorChain, and I was saying to a Thor chat recently that often when I was kind of engaging with the ThorChain ecosystem, I was like, it's just crazy, like how much the token is just like repurposed and just like made more and more useful. Like it's actually like it's critical, and I think and a lot of that, you know, I've sort of witnessed as the design around the OLAS economics has emerged as well. And yeah, okay, so like high level, I mean, one of the most interesting things I think is this is actually new with the staking model. So how staking works is that there are tokens being emitted all the time from the protocol, right? I think it's in the order of, well, you can check on chain, but yeah, I think it's something like 3 million an epoch or something like a month. And that currently is going to two places. That's currently going to developers to incentivize them to build agents, and it's going to bonders, which you kind of talked about a little bit before. Bonding is like a way of like attracting capital and liquidity into the protocol by giving out discounts. It's like an Olympus. It's a similar design to Olympus. But I think staking is the thing which like really sort of pulls a lot of it together, because with staking, what you can do if you hold OLAS is you can lock it into VOLAS. Why would you do that? Well, with VOLAS, it means that it gives you the power to pump like staking rewards into any ecosystem who has used our like staking contracts essentially. So for example, if I want to like boost all of the activity around this prediction economy, I will, I'll like max vote my VOLAS towards that, and that will like, proportionally channel a ton of OLAS towards that economy. But at the same time, if somebody comes up with some like fascinating economy around like governing protocols or like some investment, like agent investment DAO or something, and I want to support those, then I'll go for, then I can equally just like pump rewards into their systems. I think there are some like really interesting things which emerge around that, which have been pointed out by the community, is that it begins to look a lot like the curve wars, in the sense that if you're a protocol, you are like benefiting a lot from having agents participating in your ecosystem. It's you're heavily incentivized to attract VOLAS holders to kind of pump OLAS into your ecosystem, because it will keep the agents better and more active. And similarly, at the end of the day, in the same way that it happened in the curve wars, you might as well potentially just pick up some OLAS and lock it yourself, so you have control over like the destiny of your agent economy directly. So I think that's the bulk of it. I mean, yeah. So actually, one thing I would also mention is around staking on the operator side. So obviously, we want to make sure that these agents operate like exactly as we want them to, and so there's this, built into staking is like this idea that if you run an agent, you also have to like stake OLAS, which is a prerequisite to earning rewards, but could also potentially be used to like slash if people are not acting as agents are not doing what you want them to do. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that gives an idea of like the levels and like the interwovenness of how the token is put together. And yeah, I mean, I must admit, I love thinking about this stuff. I actually, I was in Denver when I read the full white paper around staking for the first time. It's like 2 o'clock. It was like super jet lag. I'd woken up at 2 a.m. and I was just reading through it, and I was like, I was weeping a bit at the sort of elegance of it. Not ashamed to admit that. Yeah, that's really a bit of an aside, but there we go.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love to hear that kind of passion about this stuff. And yeah, no, I think you did a pretty good job explaining kind of how the token is layered over the network or the framework. I think one like clarification point would be useful. You referred to operators a couple times, and we've talked about agents, and we've talked about like user staking. Can you just walk us through really quick the major like stakeholders in like along the Autonolas stack?
For sure. So they're pretty well defined, actually. Operators are people who run agents. They have computers, either could be as simple as a phone or like a dedicated device somewhere, or like run them in the cloud. But they essentially just like run the agents on some computer. They stake. They have to maintain the good activity of those agents, but that's the kind of their role. You have VOLAS holders who, as I said, like have governance power, but like I think the most interesting aspect of that is the staking situation, where they can like divert like VOLS basically becomes like a fuel for like populating different, like powering different new agent economies. So there's like governors in a way. So operators, like governors, then you've got developers, of course. You need people to write the code, and developers are actually pretty heavily incentivized to kind of add code into the protocol. Like literally, like if they do and that code is well used, then they can receive OLAS rewards. Who else have we got? We've got bonders. So yeah, bonders like basically provide like LP tokens and other capital. It's only LP tokens so far, but if they do that, then they can receive like a discount on OLAS from the protocol. That's what the protocol is designed to do for them. And am I missing one? Then we also have like a bucket of like contributors. So admittedly the token is like actually less woven in to that, but we need people to like spread the word about the protocol, to like coordinate the development of new agent, like people building and delivering different agent systems. And so there's also this contributors. So it was like contributors, bonders, developers, governors, and operators.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it definitely helps, I think, like wrap things together. We have got about 3 minutes left here. I want to use that to like give you the space to talk about anything maybe we might have missed that you find interesting. I would also like to like prime you a little bit with a quote before that. This was from maybe you wrote this. If not you, one of your co-founders did. Oh shit, I just had it. I lost it. All right, I'm gonna try and restate it. This was from your white paper, the Autonolas white paper, and I think when I read this kind of like helped drive home what Autonolas is really about, and I'm hoping you can like speak to the long-term vision a bit with that. Basically, it says, just as data has been the one scarce and in-demand resource of the information age, full stack autonomous services will become that resource in the next era. Yeah, I just really like that quote. So I'm hoping you can like maybe expand a little bit on that and like your vision for like what that looks like.
Yeah. So basically, like my view for a long time has been that the sort of global economies have like largely stagnated, or at least they're not keeping pace with the demands of the global population, and that's where a lot of problems that we have today kind of stem from. And so we have issues with demographics. We have like obviously like sort of climate issues, and I think that we're not gonna just like we're not gonna magically grow our way out of this situation. We're not gonna like expand our like capacity as like individuals and like companies and our legal systems and like all this sort of stuff. I think we need a fundamental new platform and way of doing things, like a new platform, a new substrate for the economy. And obviously, I think that blockchains and particularly these new AI models are critical for that. But really, what we haven't seen blossom yet is like the actual sort of workers who are going to like populate this new economy. And so when we're talking about like autonomous services being a scarce resource going into the future, we think that whoever can command the AI workers to build this massive new economy, which we so, in my opinion, sorely need, will take over essentially. So yeah, I mean that's how I look at that quote.
Yeah, well said. I think within the context of like the way different economies and just like societies look today, it makes a lot of sense. It's a scary future indeed, but an exciting one, I think. We're about at time here, Oak. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with us. This was a lot of fun. Definitely a lot to think about, lot to digest. Yeah, hopefully we all learned something. Hopefully all our viewers learned something here today. I certainly did. So yeah, thanks
Maybe
again,
I can
man.
just
Really appreciate this. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you mind if I just quickly give a shout out to well, the
Please.
OLADs and the OLASs out there? We have a strong kind of growing community, and I think they've been doing a lot of great work to put the word out there. And yeah, I'm just super excited to see that. I think also if you're interested in either developing agents or from a protocol perspective want to populate your protocol with agents, or if you're interested in just like running an agent and being able to or just like stake on an agent, then I think the best place to keep up to date is the Olas Twitter account, which is it's Olas aka Autonolas. So that's potentially a bit confusing, but Autonolas is the place, the Twitter account to go to like get updated and follow the links through to the website. I might have cut out there.
No, you're good.
Did I cut out there?
Yep.
No? Okay.
No, we heard you. I think Ollie's.
That was on my end. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, thanks very much, guys. Thanks for bringing me on.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. That is... Oh, I don't even think we mentioned the number of the episodes. I think we're at 60.
It doesn't matter. It's somewhere around there.